On today's episode of the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast, we're going to be doing part 2, talking about that FTM-310D that's coming out. Quite an exciting little mobile radio on there. This is going to be part 2 of the 2-part series where we cover some more features of that radio. That's for today, Friday, September 5th on the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. And welcome, everybody, to the Yaesu The Radio Show podcast. I am your host, John Crook. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. This is, once again, the FTM-310D Part 2 on there. And we did Part 1, of course, last week, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about it. They were saying, hey, John, you know, can it do more? Is there more coming? What is there? What is their accessories? And we said, yeah, you know, hey, we got it coming. We got Part 2 coming, and that's what this week's episode is all about. It is going to be covering Part 2 here, which there's a few more things on there that really make it quite an interesting little radio on there. Now, before we get started, I do have to say that we have our social media team at Yaesu that tries to keep up with our social media stuff. And I say tries to because we have different social medias, we scan different boards, we do different things. We try to help out customers the best that we can. Now, sometimes we can help out customers going along and doing sort of technical support stuff on there. But really, technical support really has to call in on current models. Sometimes there's older models on there that allow us to kind of help a little bit on there, or we'll allow people to do it. But if it's current models, we do say that you got to go ahead and contact us on there. But the reason I bring this up is because while we have our social media team, time to time, we see people that go ahead and send in comments or stuff like that. And on there, we want to recognize a few people here today that have sent in some comments about the last week's episode on there real quick, which is kind of nice on there because it's like, hey, it's kind of cool what people are saying. So first of all, we're going to give a few shout outs to some of our YouTube viewers from last week, which includes KK4EKK. That's KK4EKK. Kind of a nice little call in there. Donnie, thank you for going ahead and giving us comments about last week's episode. Thanks out to KD2UDR. Thanks for going ahead and letting us know how much you're enjoying the 710 Field, as well as some other Yaesu products out there. We're also going to go ahead and say out there to, doesn't have a call sign on there, but we're going to go Ken Gilchrist 8670. Thanks for going ahead and posting a comment on our YouTube channel, as well as Jason Lockwood 7395. So Jason Lockwood 7395. Thank you for going ahead and posting those comments out there. How some people even sound the love for the 710 on last week's episode dealing with the 310 and all the other great comments out there. Like I said, you know, sometimes people will just, you know, you always see the bad comments or sometimes people complaining. So recognizing some of those people that actually stopped in there, posted some nice comments saying, hey, thanks for these radios. It is greatly appreciated. Now, prior to going ahead and getting into today's core episode on here, I want to go ahead and take a moment and always remind people, head on over to our new Yaesu.com website. Yes, Yaesu Radio for Professionals, our new website on there, which is broken down into 3 simple, easy categories, covering amateur radio, aviation radio, and marine radio. I know some people said, hey, I can't find this anymore. Where do I find this and this and this? Hey, it's even simpler and easier than ever before. You looking for amateur radio products? Click on amateur radio. Hey, you're an aviation buff, want to see what products we have in there? Click on aviation. And of course, our great marine radio line, which a lot of people love, a lot of people use in there. Click on marine. I will take you then to those pages that deal with that product line specifically. And then you'll find all the great things. On an amateur radio spot, you're going to find the place for amateur HF radios and transceivers, VHF, UHF mobiles, and VHF, UHF handhelds, and the legacy products. So many people said, John, where can I go to find about the materials, the stuff that you have on radios that are no longer in production? That's going to be under our legacy product. However, I could sit here talking about the website all day long, but we actually did a podcast on that a couple weeks ago. Go look at our YouTube channel. Go look at our PodBeAN channel. You'll find that episode on there. But if you need to contact us, you need more information on there, head on over to Yaesu.com. Alrighty, so as I said, today's episode covers part 2 of there. And there's a couple key parts to this wonderful and amazing radio. And I call it a wonderful and amazing radio because the form factor is something that a lot of people have wanted for the longest time. I've heard so many people saying that, coming up to them saying, John, I had an 8800 before. I had an 8900 before. I really liked the dual display side by side, not necessarily top and bottom, but side by side. I wanted a bigger radio. And even though cars are getting smaller, vehicles are getting smaller, places to put radios are getting smaller, we needed to have a little bit more flexibility. So I want a nice control head. I want a bigger screen, bigger display, but I want it remote. And the 310 hits every single thing about this radio. As you kind of see, if you're watching on our YouTube channel feed, or if you're going ahead and listening on our podcast, get on over, find a picture of the FTM-310D, and you're going to see it has a removable head, but a giant big display with the left side and a right side on there. And you can remote mount it. Even the better parts, as we kind of talked a little bit about last week with the AESS technology and the speaker, you got a speaker in the head. Alrighty, you have the separate controls for each side. This is a true dual band radio. This isn't a dual band mono display where you have a radio that's a VHF, UHF, but you can only display one frequency or one band at a time. This is not the case on there. And we continue talking more about this and some of the great features. Now, one of the first features I'm going to talk about for today's episode is something that I think probably got asked a ton of by people, is dealing with Wires X. Yes, this radio is going to be Wires X capable, especially for the portable digital node function. So remember, PDN, portable digital node, allows you to take your radio and directly connect it to your computer and then use that as a Wires X connectivity point. And I'm going to use the term connectivity point because remember, with PDN operation, you can either use it as direct, meaning you're going to use the microphone and the speaker of that radio to talk into the Wires X network, sort of like a glorified speaker microphone is, if you've probably heard me call it in the past. Or if you don't want to sit in front of your radio, you want to be able to sit outside, and as it kind of starts to get into the fall here in Northwest Wisconsin here, I like to just take my handheld radio and I like to go outside, sit by the campfire out there, or sit out on the deck, enjoy the nice day. I don't be tied into my shack, tied into the basement, but I still want to use Wires X. That's where the access point functionality of PDN takes place on there. And really, it's super cool on how we can do this with Wires X. But better yet, Wires X in its simplicity. All right, just if you're going to use this radio for Wires X and you're not replacing another radio or something, and whatever the situation may be, you hook it to the computer, you have your Wires X device registered, you're good to go. Now, once again, you're either at the microphone in front of the radio, or you have it in access point mode, and you could take another Fusion radio, handheld, whatever, and go anywhere with it and talk back into it via RF. I know many people that have gone ahead and said, you know what? I hook up my Wires X node at home. I don't have an HRI 200, but I use this portable digital functionality. I put my antenna up. I put it down to about 20 watts, but I got a good high gain antenna on VHF, and I'm going miles upon miles upon miles with my mobile radio, talking back home and enjoying on Wires X. And that's a really, like I said, cool part about it. Now, in addition, this is going to let you travel. I know some people that have already said, John, I've done it with my 100. I've done it with my 500, my 510, the 400, all those kind of things. I have it mounted in the car, but I travel a lot. So what I actually do is when I'm stopped for the evening or whatever, I'll go ahead and, use it to, or sitting while I'm waiting or whatever the case may be, whatever their travel plans are. They pull out their little laptop computer that they always have with them. They got their internet connection, and the internet is everywhere now, right? It's in vehicles, it's whatever. But they connect it on there, and while they're sitting, while they're waiting, taking a little break, whatever they're doing, they're talking on Wires X. I have some very good friends of mine that are actually over-the-road semi-drivers, and he goes ahead and says how he will stop during the night, and before he goes to bed, he has a little nightly ritual sometimes that he will hop on Wires X and have a conversation for about 30 minutes, maybe an hour, depending on what's going on whatsoever. And the best part is he uses the 500, but he says, I'm gonna swap it out here for the 310. And I said, well, why are you doing that? And he goes, because I like the bigger display of the 310 on there. And he said, but really cool is one of the features that we're going to talk about later today, which deals with speaker and microphone. So we'll come to that in just a minute here, okay? But let's finish talking about Wires X with this. This will have the capability on there. You will need to use what we call the SCU58 kit for it. That is the audio cables plus the USB cable of the SCU50 That's going to be the 56 cable in there. The 56 cable goes between the radio and the computer. The SCU58 kit includes the extra audio cable that you would need if you're going to talk down wires X to analog and digital stations as well. So check that out on there. If you already have a Wires X device, you do not need to register another device. If you want to, you could swap it out for this one here with the DPID, and you can do that as registration. Or remember, you only need to register Wires X devices that are going to be on the air at the same time, okay? Unlike those other modes that require you to register with the trust server and do this and which radio you're using. Nah, you don't need to do any of that. All you simply need to do is have one registration per device that is going to be on the air active. And I can't stress active. Same thing with this. If you're going to be using this at home, but then you're going to take it in the car, guess what? You had home, you run it on the home computer. When you go, you run on a laptop. You don't need to register twice. You don't need to do anything that twice, just once, and you're good to go on there. Now, one of the other next features that I was actually kind of surprised, when I heard the radio was going to have this feature, I was kind of being like, oh, how's this going to go ahead and look? And I'm actually pretty surprised. And that is that it comes with a built-in GPS receiver. So it does have GPS built into there. And then by having GPS in there, it also is going to be able to be capable of 1200 and 9600 baud APRS. So our Yaesu radios do have the ability to do APRS. It is not a full TNC. A lot of people ask, oh, does APRS, how can I access the TNC? There's not a TNC in there. Okay, there's not. Our radios for APRS are basic. You can go ahead and transmit messages with it. You can receive messages with it. You can beacon out with it. You can see other stations on there. So it has a lot of that functionality built into it. You need the GPS for that, and GPS is built into this radio. But one of the things for me that I like to have on there, now this is just me being my public safety hat I wear sometimes and whatever, I like to be able to see my GPS coordinates of where I'm at. And this GPS compass display is going to be really neat, and with the way that the size of the display is and the way it's laid out, it's going to be able to facilitate that information very easily. On the left-hand side of your display, when you're in that GPS compass display, it's going to show you the coordinates. And then in the center, you're going to go ahead and see the little graph that shows how many satellites you're pulling in on there. And then on the right-hand side, you're going to see the top and bottom situation on there, but that's going to be your left and your right side on there. So this is really going to allow you to be able to still function your radio, but look at that GPS data, look at those GPS coordinates on there. Now, APRS communication, that's going to be nice because that's going to kind of take up that whole display on there. You're going to really be able to see a lot of that data that you need when you want to do GPS. You'll be able to see the GPS coordinates. You'll be able to see the call sign, the distance, the speed, the direction, lots of different things that you can put into that APRS display on there. Nice real estate on there. And to me, I just think, while it is not a color display like the 510 and the 500 series are, or even the 400 series are, I think this white color display you can do, or even the orange color if you want to do the orange color, that white kind of bluish display really allows you to see it. And with the way, the width of it and kind of height of it, it really accentuates that data on there. So I think a lot of people are going to be able to find out how well it looks and how well it displays that data on there. So instead of trying to cram it into a small screen, about the size of the original cell phones, now we got a bigger type screen that's going to be on the FTM-310. Now, talking about what I said real quick, how's friend of mine says, man, this is going to be a game changer. He wants to change it into a semi and stuff like that. Because it comes down to this. True dual band operation with C4 FM and simultaneous received, independent knobs, LED indicators for each band. So the left band has the left controls, the right side has the right controls. You're going to operate it on there. But where he was getting at was, he said the control head with the microphone jack. So he is planning on going ahead and basically creating a bridge kind of situation. He's going to have the head for the radio up front. The head for the radio has a speaker there, and it also has a microphone jack on that too. But then what he's going to do, he's going to run a separate, because the speaker's in the radio body itself, and you can plug the microphone into the radio body itself. So now he can be in the back of the semi, Or other people have asked us too and done it with other radios. Like, what if they have a dual operating position for some reason? Like, is it an MCOM situation or whatever? And they want to do that. Hey, now you can have a speaker and a microphone almost at two separate locations without the cable extending that far, depending on how you have it set up, whatever the case may be. But now what you're doing is you have that ability to have that microphone and a speaker in each location. Now, I'll give you another example of how someone else did this with the 510, and they said, you know what, John, we may switch to this in our comm center, our ops center, because of the ability to do that. What they did is they wanted to be able to have people to talk at different operating positions, which are actually across from one another. So what they did is they're going to have they're going to have one radio on one desk and one radio on a second desk. But what they also are doing is that they're running the extra speaker microphone from, let's say, radio A on desk A to desk B, so B operator can operate radio A remotely, and then the vice versa. Radio B on desk B is going to have a speaker and microphone ran over to radio desk A. Now what they do is they put a little be able to control the audio level on the external speakers on there. But now what they have the ability to do is when they're in that comm center, they can have radio A set to one frequency or operational kind of thing. Then they can have radio B set to it. And then if need be, person at desk A can operate their own radio A and have the ability to transmit and receive with radio B on that separate microphone and speaker on there. I was like, that is pretty ingenious all around. I mean, that's using the old noggin there, because guess what? Now you're able to go and have that ability, that flexibility to operate 2 or 4 frequencies, depending on how you have it set up and how you want to use certain other aspects on there. So they are quite happy with that. A lot of people are happy that the microphone is returned to the control head, and there's a speaker in that control head. When I travel with mine, with my 510, my 150, the 300 is going to do the same exact thing here. I can take a rental car, just put that small control head up front. I can run that main radio in the back seat, the trunk, wherever else, underneath the seat, wherever else, right? That I need to be able to put that radio there while I'm traveling, and it just works out amazingly. I really have to say this is a great, great feature on there. So that is just a few more of the features, and we're going to go over basically 2 more here. But before that, I kind of want to talk about savings. And what do I mean by savings? What I mean by savings is the savings that Yaesu is giving to you, the customers, the loyal supporters of Yaesu, the people that saying, you know, I know Yaesu product is high quality. I know Yaesu product is good. I know Yaesu products come with a limited 3-year warranty. 3 years, 1, 2, 3, 3-year warranty on there to the original purchaser. I'm not seeing really anybody else in the amateur world going ahead and doing that without you having to pay extra or some other sort of strings attached to it. But until September 30th, that's right, till the end of this month, of the recording of this podcast, you got 25 days left. You can go ahead and get some great discounts on Yaesu products through instant coupons through our authorized dealer. What does instant coupon mean? It means instant. It means taking off the price of the radio at the time of purchase. No purchasing the radio and getting a mail-in rebate. No purchasing the radio and getting some sort of gift card that may or may not come. No. Yaesu, we're passing it directly on to you as the customer for there. So right now, for until September 30th of this month, you can get an FT-710 AESS or field version, get an instant $120 off at the time of purchase. If you're looking for that FTM-510 or the FTM-510 with ASP, you can get an additional $100 off on that radio. Hey, we've been talking about the 310, but, you know, kind of doing its predecessor to 150, which is the analog-only version. Guess what? You can get an additional $30 off that one. The FT-3185, 85 watts of VHF raw power. This radio is built like a brick tank. You can throw it across a gymnasium and pick it up and use it again, like the old cell phones. That's how durable this radio is. You can get $30 instant coupon on there. The FT5D, now's the time. Hey, September's usually emergency preparedness month. Getting yourself a new handheld with the FT5D, $40 off instant coupon price. The FT70, another great fusion handheld, very simple, easy to operate. You're going to get $20 off there. The VX6, this thing has been around for ages. technically tri-band, VHF, UHF, and 1.5 watts, 220. Guess what? $30 off. And finally, the FT60, $20 off. Those are instant coupons, and they're only available and offered through an authorized Yaesu dealer. Check that out. And if you need to find out where those authorized Yaesu dealers are, head on over to the Yaesu.com website and select Find a Dealer. Alrighty, as I said, we have a few more things to talk about. Now, this next one item that we're going to talk about is not just related to the 310. It is related to the 510 and some other radios on there, and is one that I've been actually told, called, got letters on, whatever, saying, man, I wish this mic had more functionality. I wish the mic would do this and this and this. And then we say, but the mic already does. And what we're talking about is the SSM-85D. That's right, the SSM-85D. It is the microphone, the newer style microphones that come with, like the FTM-310, the FTM-150, the FTM-510, the FTM-500, all the newer VHF, UHF mobiles. It is backwards compatible with recent models. So you can use it like on the FTM 100, 200, 300. The 200 and 300 actually comes with this. But the 100, the 400, the FT2980, the FT2900, you can use this backwards compatible. The only thing that's not really going to work on there is that mute button. That mute button is for the newer radios that it comes with on there. But this radio isn't just the microphone, I should say. This microphone isn't just a simple push to talk, release to listen kind of thing. No, there are, not only in addition to the normal DTMF pad that has zeros 1 through 9 and the number 0 on there, and a star and a pound sign, not a hashtag, pound sign. You also have buttons along the right side. That's A, B, C, and D. And along the buttons of the microphone, you're going to have a P1, P2, P3, P4. Now, 1 through 0 or on there is going to enter the numbers and the letters that you want to go ahead and do, depending on if you're programming a memory or sending DTMF codes. You can change the VFO memory operation modes by pushing the star button. So you push the star, the asterisk button, it's going to switch from VFO to memory. Pretty cool on there. Pound sign changes the operating band. So if you're in VFO and you're on VHF, you want to go up to UHF, just push that pound button. It's going to go ahead and move you through the bands, the equivalent of pushing the band button. Switch B is going to change between the main and the sub. So while holding a microphone, you don't even have to interact with that radio. You can go ahead and change it and hit that B button, and it's going to switch from the left side to the right side, to the left side to the right side by going ahead and pushing that B button on there. C adjusts your squelch level, so you can push the letter C, turns into squelch mode. You can kick up and down on the microphone arrow buttons. And then D switches to that scope display. Now, what P1 through P4 do is kind of an interesting thing. P1 out of the box is already assigned as a default a second PTT function. And when I mean second PTT function, I mean is that while you're holding the microphone, if you push the normal PTT button, the push to talk button, whatever band is selected is what it will transmit on. However, if you push and hold the P1 button, that will key up on the sub band. So you don't even have to switch bands technically. You just have to be aware which button you want to push. Now, the P1 comes as that as a default setting. However, you can change P1 to P4 from 18 different assignable functions. Once again, 18 different assignable functions for P1 through P4. So if you want to, you don't have to have P1 as that secondary push to talk button if you want to. You can have it as something else on there. A lot of it is listed on the manual, but it will show you once you go into the menu system what you can go ahead and switch it on there too. So, couple cool, super things about that microphone. It really is becoming a lot easier to operate. And once again, this is why it was easy for the friend I have that drives that semi, because he has that radio mounted on his dash, or will have this radio mounted on his dash. He has an FTM 5, I think like I said 500 or 510 there right now. But that's why he can do it. He can literally be sitting in the back of his cab part of the trailer. I'm not even sure what to call the bedroom part of it. Okay. And he can see that display. He just picks up that microphone he has on there, and he can change memory channels, do all that stuff, do everything remotely away from the radio. And it's just, that's a cool thing about that microphone and how they have it set up on there. Now, the last thing we're going to go ahead and talk about today is what are the options for this radio, John? What are the accessories? What else can I buy for this radio? What should I maybe think about buying for this radio? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the SJMK500. That is the bracket that has been used on the FTM-510, the FTM-500 on there, the FTM-150. The design and concept is pretty simple. It will attach to the back of the control head, and then another part snaps into where the control head would normally snap in, and it gives you about 180-degree usage of view on there. I like it. I do it with mine because if I have it as a mobile setup and I shove like the radio between the center console and the passenger side, or all these other little tiny nooks and crannies and everything that you can kind of put in there, it's like, man, if the head was just there, well, guess what? This SJM 500 bracket allows you to go ahead and do that. Now we have the MMB 103 mounting bracket, which allows you to connect the head to that bracket, and then you can mount that bracket somewhere in the car on there. You have the SU 62, which is 10 feet, and the CT 132, which is 20 feet. Those are control head extension cables. So one of the things that the FTM-310 does not automatically come with is a separation cable. The reason being is just like on the 500, the 510, the 150, you have multiple configuring mounts to this radio now. It is no longer attached to the body or remote head. It is attached to the body, attached to this SJM K500 bracket, which gives you there, which you don't need a separation kit for. Or maybe you do want a separation kit, or maybe you want it, you got to go 18 feet in the car instead of, a 10-foot run in the car. Whatever the case may be, these accessories are needed to be purchased separately on there. We have the MEK5, which is a microphone extension kit. Now, that is a kind of interesting concept on there, because if you take a look at that on there, it's like, well, wait a minute, there's a microphone in the head and there's a microphone in the body of the radio. So what exactly do I need that for? Well, some people want to have a different mic. They want to have the mic maybe a little bit further away. Some people may mount the control head on the actual dash of the car, and they don't want wires coming off it or something. So the MEK5 is a microphone extension kit. It goes up to 10 feet, but it's not just for the 310. It's for the 510, the 500, the 150, the 400, the 300, the 200, the 100. So a lot of the current model radios on there. Now, if you buy the FTM-310D without the ASP board, you can buy the SPU1, which turns it into an ASP radio, later or separately on there. It is going to cost you a little bit more than if you just bought the ASP version on there. And I'm going to tell you, once you have the ASP version on there and you can see what it does for radio signals, for analog and just pulling in these signals out of the mud, you're going to be, wow. Why would I ever live without it? As someone joked around and told me about it, and I said, I don't know. I think it's a great option on the radio there. You have the FVS2, so Frank Victor Sam -2. That is the voice guide unit. Not only will allow you to do some more recording in there, but it also will help things on there. So when you push the VFO button, it will say VFO, or when you hit memory, it'll say memory, channel 1, channel 2, or if you're in VFO, it's like when you enter the frequency, you'll be like 1, 4, 6, 5, 2, 0, so you can do those kind of things on there. I already talked about the SCU58 Wires X kit on there. We talked about the Wires X kit. We do offer the MLS 100. Not the MLS 200 or any others. You want the MLS 100 for this radio. That is the extension speaker that can plug right into the back of the radio. We have the brand new, talked about it on the podcast, SCU 67. That's Sam Charles Union 67, which goes from an 8-pin to a 6-pin Motorola microphone adapter, so you can use your favorite desktop microphone. I have an M90D that I use on my radios. It's great. It's amazing. One microphone for HF or VHF on there. If you want to use Bluetooth operation, yes, the FTM-310 does not come with Bluetooth. I know some people have said some comments on there. Sorry, that's the way it is. But you can buy the BU5 unit, which is a Bluetooth unit. And then you can get the SSM BT20. That's right, SSM-BT20. That is our Bluetooth headset on there. And our Bluetooth protocol is very simple. It's just audio only. It's not going to control the radio, program the radio. I'm trying to think of all these other things people wanted to do. TNC operation. No, it doesn't do any of that. It's just strictly audio. So just want to keep that in the back of your mind. We have the MH42C MH42C6J. Say that twice. MH42C6J. That is the microphone without the DTMF pad. We already talked. It comes with the SSM-85D, but you can purchase an extra one. And finally, we talk about our two power supplies that we actually have for Yaesu for people who want to match the equipment. That is going to be the FP1030A, so it's 1030A, and the FP1023, 1023 on there. So the FP1030 is a 12 volt, 25 amp hour power supply. And the FP1023 is a power supply once again and provides 23 amps on there. So unless you have something that's going to be really big or you're going to have a lot of things that you need a power output to continue on there, you can get by with that FP1023. Very simple, very small, very compact. People have even mounted radios to the top of that. That's how small and kind of compact it is on there. But those are your options for accessories for the FTM-310. Well, it's kind of come that time there. I have been talking so much and everything like that, and my voice is almost ready to give out here. But thank you for tuning into this episode of the podcast, the FTM-310D Part 2. Join us for our podcast on a regular basis. We try to get them out on Friday, depending on how busy we are and stuff. Sometimes we'll get them out right away in the morning or mid-afternoon, but we always try to release them on Friday. If you haven't, please go ahead and bookmark our PODBEAN stream on there. It is at Yaesu USA. That's YAESU USA.podbean. That's PODBEAN.com. Or if you are a fan of it's not Gmail, but Google, more in essence YouTube, you can watch our video version here on YouTube for our address of Yaesu USA Official. Once again, Yaesu USA Official. Some other people try to pretend to be us out there, and we're like, yeah, no, it's not going to go ahead and work on there. We are Yaesu USA Official on YouTube. Also, check out, we are working on getting that corrected to get you back out there. So maybe you're going to catch this podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or other different ones out there. We are working to make sure that our podcast does go out to all the different streaming players on there. And as always, if you have any ideas for the podcast show, want to ask more questions, feel free to drop us a line at the contact us page at yaesu.com under general questions. And feel free to always jump in and give some of those comments. We do like to have our social media team work with the different people. We have a social media team that's sort of kind of 24/7 on there. But once again, sometimes we have to correct the information. It takes a little longer. And I think, there's been a few people that have tried to spam our social media sites, and, it's great to be loved on there. So with that, I want everybody to take care, stay safe, and we'll catch you on down the log.